All right, we're talking about the importance of nutrient balance. You got to realize that right now in this tight economic situation we're on in farming, every ounce of fertility that you use has a dollar cost associated with it. You know that intrinsically, you know that, but it matters more in this economic environment than it ever has. One of the things that Tommy Roach down here at Nature is going to cover is about how you can treat the plant versus flinging fertility at the soil and how you can get big results. Tommy is going to be joined by Kelly Garrett, Iowa farmer, Chad Henderson, Alabama farmer, Kevin Matthews, North Carolina farmer. If you were at this morning's this morning's session, you might remember that's North Carolina, not South Carolina. So I want to go with Kelly to lead things off. Nutrient balance is one of your big things. You've talked about this a long time, and so I want to kick off with Kelly about, and we're not talking about nitrogen and phosphorus and the big N, P, and K. We're talking about the entirety and how they work together. Each one of these guys has battled a nutrient imbalance. Tom and I talked about in our preparation. Calcium, magnesium, imbalances that you've had to work to correct, and it might take a decade or 2 decades or your lifetime in farming to correct the soil. So what we're doing is immediate steps you can take to remediate and fix the balance to affect the crop this year, because soil takes a long time. Go.
On my farm, we started playing around with sap sample and the analysis of it in 21. We started to use it in mass in 22. And, there's a lot of talk in agriculture about an over application of nitrogen. That's a little bit of an incomplete statement to me. The plant wants to take nitrogen and it wants to use the micronutrients to cause an enzymatic reaction to turn the nitrogen into protein and amino acids. It's very simple. If enough micronutrients are not present, that nitrogen doesn't get converted and it builds up in the plant. And so then by definition, there is your over application. So we use the sap analysis to make sure we're converting or assimilating all of that nitrogen. And my soil produces enough nitrogen, it's Iowa soil, that I continue to lower my nitrogen and I continue to raise my micronutrients. My goal is to assimilate or use 95% of the nitrogen that I can measure in the plant. If I do that, my crop is reaching potential. I'm getting the nice yields, things like that. The plant's healthier. And in my opinion, especially in this economic time, I'm not wasting a nickel. I'm putting on the minimum amount of fertilizer, and I'm using all of it. So then if the crop is reaching potential, then we have the best yield that we can on that said field. That's my whole goal.
Tommy, in our preparation call, you and I talked about the fact that if you want to change the the nutrient balance in your soil, that's a long-term project. And again, you want to do it as a farmer. You want to leave the land better than you left it, than you got it. But the point here is the plant. This year, I don't got time to wait until my soil is right. It could be a decade down the road. I got to fix things right now for the maximum yield. So speak to that when you're talking about nutrient balance. It's for this year's crop.
So everybody has their own issues. Chad has issue with Honda and NASA and everybody else moving into his geography. Yes. You not have a microphone? Okay. And Kevin's got his own set of issues, but one thing that we've been doing this panel for 4 years now, and we've talked a lot about, I've been labeled Mr. Acetate by some people on the panel, and we've talked about potassium. That's not going to change, but one thing that we need to focus on. Yes, sorry, you're correct, BioK. BioK is right there behind you. So one thing that has changed is Damien talked about fixing the soil. And how do people fix the soil? We don't fix the soil, we feed the plant, but a lot of people try to fix it with gyp, with lime, with copious amounts of sulfur, which are all good. But what do you do in the interim until you get that soil fixed? You still have calcium issues, you still have magnesium issues, you still have potassium issues. And we now can deal with all three because you can walk up and down the aisle here. There's all sorts of precision placement equipment. We now have Mr. Acetate, calcium acetate, magnesium acetate that we can actually fix soil at the same time we are balancing out plant nutrition. So, and we'll get into that as we go.
All right, so you specifically named these three farmers as having a balance problem, and it was calcium and magnesium in general.
Correct.
Right? So
everybody does,
and every farmer here, everybody at this commodity classic has an imbalance issue. They've got something they're battling. So I guess what I want to hear is which one of these guys you want to go to first about how you addressed it with them with a prescriptive plan to get the balance, realizing the soil is a longer-term thing to the plant. So whichever one of these three you want to go to and describe the prescriptive work you did to get a balance.
Chad, go.
So this is, I'm from Alabama, and our soils are dirt. I don't think I have soil. I think I have dirt. So anyway, we're a 2 to 3 organic matter. We're 7 to 9 CC, but our base saturation of mag is in the toilet. We're half of what we need to be, in other words. So yeah, so other people have the other half, Some people are high, some people are low. But what we're going to do to fix that is we can always come up. We've always been on K-Mag for years with dry fertilizer, but we're still addressing the K factor. Well, the K and the Mag is the problem. They are antagonized to each other. So as I keep trying to raise the Mag, I'm still raising the K, right? So I don't need any more K per se, because I'm 6 or 7 on.
We can feed the K during the season.
We can feed the K, but we can't get a hold of the Mag. So Tommy and them's come up with this mag acetate and this calcium acetate to where we can address these issues. So we're going to put a half a gallon to a gallon, either in a ditch, in the 2x2, other places where we can address the plant instead of addressing the soil, because I can't fix it in my soil. Been trying 20 years.
Kevin, you've got a different issue.
Yeah, so we're very high mag, and we're needing the calcium. And we have been able to change certain farms. It's about a 10 to 11 year process, and you really need irrigation so you can grow massive crops on it to build that root mass, build organic matter, and a lot of poultry litter, a lot of gypsum to try to get it there, and using the correct lime source. But however, during that process is when we got working, Chad, all of us with the foliars, learning more and more. But it's more to it than just using a foliar. If you've got a mag issue or a calcium issue, and you're putting some in for foliar or whatnot, but you got to understand the demand, as like this chart over here on this uptake and participant. You got to understand when that plant needs these products. And if you're just going to go out and make one application and you think you're going to put it out there and you're not putting it at the right time, more than likely you're wasting money. You really need to put that nutrient at these low rates just before that plant needs it for that active growth period. And for me, I'm all about bushels. So that's what I sell as bushels. And I'm looking at that reproductive side. I can't do but so much on the vegetation side to build it up because our soils can't handle it. And then the least limiting factor is what stops us.
Right. So one thing that I don't know if whoever went to the panel this morning, we talked about nutrient uptake charts. Here's the roadmap that everybody ought to be following, because we all eat breakfast, lunch, supper. Some eat more than others. Kelly eats more than me. So we don't just eat breakfast and then expect it to carry us through the whole day. Why do a lot of people put out copious amounts of NPK and maybe some other stuff, thinking they're taking care of their whole nutrient package for the year? Why do they put it out up front?
By the way, Tommy, for our friend over here from Quebec, copious means lots. Anyway, so the best chart you ever had, and Nature's the only company that we've worked with here at XtremeAg that does this, and it just is so demonstrative, illustrative, whatever word you want to use, of how wrong it would be to be trying to put so much out. And then I think, and I'm not the agronomist, nor am I the farmer, when you throw out so much fertility all at once, not only is it not there, does it mess up balance?
Yes. Do you think that, Chad, you want to answer this? I mean, do you think that all the phosphorus we put out up front is going to still be there when 50% of the phosphorus is needed past tassel? Do we think it's going to be there?
Yeah, if you don't do anything else before you leave, take your phone and take a picture of that chart and take a picture of that chart. And just start looking at them and look at your fertility plan through the year and look at how it's going to uptake it. and then you start wrapping your mind around when it's available and what you have out there. Like if you learn nothing else, just take a picture of that, and then you'll start understanding where the balance is.
All right, so what's the worst case scenario on the imbalance? All right, so, I mean, is it costing me money? Is it costing me yield? Or is it causing me long-term degradation? Kevin, what is it, if everybody has imbalance problems, what's it cost them?
Money is yield. Yield is money. Is it net money? Net ROI. Because we can get big yields, but if we spend too much, we've not made no money. So we definitely want to do that. Everything that they're saying, and Chad's talking about the charts, I'm so pushing that part because that's what we need to learn is these uptakes. But another thing is we've got to know how to identify the growth stage of the plant. So many people think they know, they feel like they know, but if you're off 2 or 3 days during a maximum GDUs, you can actually be applying at the wrong time, and you can do as much harm to the plant as you would have been doing good.
Okay, so give me the remedies. You went to each of these guys, talk about the prescriptive plan that you did, and you said, all right, Kelly, I'm going to attack this nutrient imbalance issue. What did you attack first and how?
An example of one we did last year for the first time, we've always concentrated our SAP analysis on corn. Last year, we concentrated on soybeans. Our soybeans were critically deficient of calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, which doesn't surprise me when you understand the electrical charges of those elements, things like that. In my soil with the CECs we have, the imbalances in my soil, those nutrients get tied up incredibly fast, and they're just not available to the plant. And, using Mr. Acetates, calcium acetate, magnesium acetate, and the sulfur products that they have, along with some potassium, we were able to make applications based on our SAP analysis, and we ended up making 3 applications, and it was a 16 bushel yield gain in soybeans. That's a tremendous ROI. And so, the question is, are we losing yield or losing money? When we're out of balance, we're wasting input dollars and we're losing yield. The answer is yes to both. And so that's an example of our soybean research last year of how we remedied that imbalance, and it paid off in utilizing all of our inputs, and it paid off in a big yield gain.
How'd you fix your nutrient imbalance, Chad?
Oh, I still ain't fixed it yet.
Well, that's the problem everybody has, right?
100%.
And every time you put something on, it has the chance then of distorting the balance, right?
Well, knowing is half the battle, right? So, like I said, it's a constant challenge, to fix these things. Me and Tommy's been through a load of trials. Like, we've tried everything, for certain things. But this is the new one that we're going to learn more about. I've learned a lot over the years about boron. I've known a lot of guys about using too much of this, that. Well, by the time we come back here next year, I'm going to tell you all about magnesium. I'm going to be able to tell you how it won't work, why it won't work, and what makes it look like snot. So anyway, we're going to manage that, but the only way to do that is going to be get it in the root zone, period. The roots are made to take up the nutrients. The leaves are made to take up other things. Now, we can foliar feed, that's fine, it's triggers, but we still got to get that bulk down here in the nutrition zone, what we're made to do. So getting it in the right place is what we're talking about.
Okay, by the way, these are interactive sessions. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if your name's Stuart, maybe not so much, but everybody else in here, if you have a question, we'd love to hear from you. And we want you to ask a question, reminding you that questions end with a question mark. And it's a little joke from this morning. Anyway, if you got a question you'd like to bring it up here with the guys, they'll be happy to ask. So if you got a question, raise your hand. I'll bring you a microphone. Anybody got anything?
Hey, Kevin. So I think you mentioned knowing crop stage. Talk about soybean, because historically we thought that we see first bloom, oh my gosh, it's R1.
Tommy.
Is that true?
Did you say first bloom?
Yeah.
So no. First bloom, you need about 10 to 12 nodes, main stem fruiting nodes, before you're truly an R1 growth stage. Indeterminate beans, you'll start seeing blooms very early in the vegetation stage. Well, how tall is that? Well, actually, yes, I can. You're looking, if you can stack your nodes 1 inch apart, what's 1 times 12? 12 inches. There you go.
There you go. All right, so on the chart, this is the other thing. And by the way, we've got trivia coming up. You remember, if you come to this Every year we do trivia. I've got $25 and $50 gift cards I'm going to give away, so get ready for trivia after I ask this question. Tommy, the chart down there that we all love, the nutrient requirement chart as it goes through the life cycle of a plant. At the end, is it just deficiency? Because the answer is going to be, hell, I'll just throw more stuff on it. Is it deficiency that's a problem at the end, or is imbalance still an issue at the end? Because the answer looks like it might be deficiency. I'll just fling more at it.
No, it's imbalance, because there's a lot of hidden hunger out there, say in potassium. You may not see a deficient plant, but why do I get a response when I continue to throw more nutrient at it? And I'm going to go back to one other thing, soil-based. So a lot of times if we have a lot of calcium, a lot of mag, we throw sulfur at it to help flush it. Now, the old Extension University recommendations were how much sulfur for corn? 30 pounds. That was your just standard rate. Do we think we're getting enough sulfur out? Because remember when those recommendations were established, you were getting copious amounts of free sulfur. You're getting no more free sulfur. So I'm not saying we ought to put double, but Chad will put double. Yes. But I'm saying we ought to be putting on more sulfur, because guess what? You have to have sulfur to produce protein. There's a couple essential amino acids that require sulfur to make storage proteins in endosperm and corn. And we can get on that in another topic, but put on more sulfur, put on more zinc. That's another topic.
Micronutrients and balance. When I first joined XtremeAg, Chad talked about boron, and I'm like, I never even heard about boron or its importance in there. And then you guys are talking about sulfur, and talking about zinc. The importance of micronutrients when it comes to balance, because we still have a mindset, the big three. Micronutrients, whoever wants to take this. Micronutrients' role in keeping nutrient balance.
Which crop are we talking about?
Let's go with, we're here at Commodity Classic. Let's start with corn.
Corn's going to be zinc.
You're usually deficient.
You can't get too much of it so far. I hadn't found so.
So Kelly told me, or told a recording we did once, you did a poll, you sampled, and you never found a sample that was not deficient in zinc. You want to speak to that?
Yes, the agronomy group, calibrated agronomy. When we talk about sap samples, we've got 4,000 sap samples in our database. We have yet to see one that's sufficient on zinc when we pull it. We always have to add zinc. Kevin's 100% right.
We're agreeing together?
We agree.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
All right. You want to go with sulfur? You want to go with boron? What do you want to go with next?
Sulfur. We now, with my agronomy group, again, calibrated agronomy, but now believe that probably we should put on 1 unit of sulfur for every unit of nitrogen. So like the 30 pounds is not near enough. And if you're putting that sulfur on and it's soil applied, that sulfur becomes a soil amendment. It's not there for fertility. And so the amount of sulfur that's needed for our crops is monumental. In my soil, it's huge.
Any questions at all about any of this? I just heard that you got to put 1 unit of sulfur on for every unit of nitrogen, which our friend over here that doesn't know how many counties are in Texas said, wait a minute. Okay.
So have you actually, I know you've been cutting back your nitrogen, but have you actually tried 200 units of S, and what form of S? Sorry.
What form of S, and have you put in 200
I don't
units?
put on 200 units of nitrogen. And so I oftentimes will have 80 pounds of elemental sulfur.
Yeah.
All right.
70 pounds of nitrogen.
So, any other questions? Okay, boron. And by the way, some of these things I still want you to talk to because it's about nutrient balance. They sound like deficiencies, not just imbalances. So I think the tendency is going to be, I just need to put more zinc on my crop. Does that mean that there was an imbalance, or does it mean that I never had enough zinc to begin with?
I don't think we never had enough to begin with.
People say a lot of times, hey, I've got enough of that, I don't need any more. No, you don't have enough of that, you don't have enough of the one that it needs to be the ratio with. So if it's phosphorus to zinc, then your zinc's low. If your phosphorus is high, it's not your phosphorus is too high, it's your zinc's too low.
Again, it's an incomplete statement.
Yeah.
It's the ratio between the two.
Yeah, the calcium to mag. I mean, not calcium to mag, but potassium to mag.
Yes.
So going back to then how you remedy this, you talked about an acetate solution. So Chad, what have you done with nature's help to get the balance right and uptake into the crop when that crop starts to be down toward the end?
Well, I'm just doing that this year. We're fixing to do it. We'll tell you what's going to happen.
Okay, what's going to happen?
We're going to fix it.
You're going to fix it. Well, tell me how you're fixing to fix it.
Well, I'm going to try to fix it. So we're going to put a half a gallon in furrow is what we're going to do. Well, if all the ground that we strip till, because of the way magnesium is going to affect everything else. If anybody ever try to put phosphorus and magnesium together, it makes snot, 100% snot. So whatever application we can make with just nitrogen, which would be my strip freshener bar, then we're going to slide the magnesium in that. Whichever way we can get it out, but we're going to put a half a gallon in the zone to start with.
That's where we're starting.
And then we're going to start trickling along, because I think Temple had some tests last year where he had a gallon in season through the whole year, I think 4 applications that he showed great results from, and it moved the needle. So we know that we're shooting toward that gallon range at the end of the year. And the good thing about the product is affordable. I mean, we're looking at, I don't know what, $6 an acre.
Yeah.
I mean, $6 a gallon. $6 a gallon, you know.
Kevin, I want you to talk about, and I don't know if this is the right thing because I'm not the farmer or the agronomist. When we did a recording a couple of years ago about the right kind of lime and the wrong kind of lime, does lime mess up? Does the wrong kind of lime, because you said you had dolomitic and some other type, does the wrong kind of lime worsen nutrient imbalance, or does the right kind of lime enhance nutrient balance and improve it?
So he's talking about dolomitic and calcitic. Typically, your nearest lime source is the wrong lime source, because that lime source is going to be with the same problems your soil's got. So for us, our lime comes from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is pretty expensive, $60 a ton to get it in there, but it's extremely high in calcium. Our soils are extremely high in magnesium, very low in calcium, but we're naturally low pH. But a lot of areas don't have that luxury because they're high pH, so they can't correct anything because of the high pH. They just make the pH higher. So they got to go different avenues.
Tommy, anything on that topic? pH and nutrient balance, the correlation.
So don't forget, Mr. Acetate says that you get as much benefit out of acetate as you get out of the nutrient. So, yes, I'm all about potassium, calcium now, mag now, but you cannot discount the effect you're getting with acetate. Am I correct?
Any questions? Anybody have a question out here? We're trying to make sure it's interactive as possible to make this all very useful. I got one over here from Jason Taylor, Illinois farmer. And after that, we're going to do another trivia.
Hey, if I'm foliar feeding soybeans, K and boron, what else would I add? Do I need a fulvic acid?
Yes, I would like to have that in there depending on the stage that you're at. I'm hoping you're talking about putting it on about R4. That way you're going into rapid seed fill, because that's when you can get the most bang for your buck to get that seed size as large as you can possibly get it. If you do it at R3, which is honestly, it runs out of gas before you get there with these foliars. It's just not enough to stay in the plants to get it to where it ROIs. You also need to look at your temperatures, if it's real hot, and quite frankly, between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m., don't put none out. You're wasting your money for what I'm seeing most parts.
Okay, by the way, I want to get into some. Any other questions? Go ahead and raise your hand. I want to hear from you. You said the most important thing is to take care of it for the plant right now, because remedying the soils imbalance is a long-term project. If I'm taking care of it this year with the plant, does it speed up the pace at which I get my soil balanced, or does that matter? Two separate things or the same thing?
Two separate things. I do think it's nice when we can balance the plant, and then that stover, that residue from the plant, I do think that we get some benefit from there, but it is really two separate things.
Okay. And now I'm running out of ideas on how to make this nutrient imbalance thing a new subject, because, I mean, I'm over here thinking once you correct it, but I'm probably wrong on that. Is it change season to season?
Yes, it changes season to season depending on the rainfall for us and things like that. And I really don't know that we ever can correct our soil. My soil can be high calcium and high meg, the opposite problem these guys have. And well, it's a journey, not a destination. You know, we continue to work on it, things like that. But if you stop, it's going to.
Yeah. Grab the other mic here and see if that works for you.
If we stop trying to amend that soil, it's going to revert back. And then again, you know, the CECs and the charges in the soil, things like that. I can struggle with my base saturation potassium because my mag and calcium is too high. And every time we go across the field, we almost want to put on potassium acetate. Every time we go across the field, we want to put on moly to help with the nitrogen assimilation. Every time we go across the field, we want to put on zinc. You know, that's put on your corn crop and your bean crop. And the soil balance thing is, you know, it's a little bit the same, but it can vary year to year based on the problems that we have and the rainfall we have and the crop that we have, just as Kevin said before.
There's going to be a tendency out here, somebody say, and I want any of you farmers to take it, then I want to hear from Tommy. You know what? We're in a very depressed farm economy in terms of the commodity prices right now. You just talked about going across this field and putting on zinc. And you talked about adding more sulfur, and you talked about these new units that I didn't use. I can make a pretty easy economic excuse for not doing this. Am I making a very short-sighted decision, presumably?
In my opinion, yes. You know, throughout agriculture, in Iowa at least, we always want to put that dry fertility on in the fall after harvest, and then we want to be ready for the whole year, and then we're going to cut back on the things of the foliars and things like that. I think that's the exact wrong thing to do. We should be cutting out that dry, and we should be living off that savings account that's in the soil, and then we should supplement with the foliars we're talking about because they're much less expensive, and there's a much bigger return right away versus that dry fertilizer, in my opinion.
Okay, Mike, yes, Chad.
And remember, too, about which nutrients you're talking about. I mean, where zinc's going to stick around, or we can fix it more prone, then the sulfur's not, and the boron's not. So certain ones are going to stick around longer than other ones, according to what environment you're in. You know, whether it's cold or hot, or where you're at in the stages, you know. Something new we're going to do this year is we're going to have soil samples pulled in, let's say the corn plants are going to be V2. We're going to pull some soil samples there and see what's going to be available for this season, right now, right in front of us. And then we'll work off that as well.
Give me now the economics of this thing, of how you look at it, and every year. It was pretty easy to get creative 3 years ago. You got to scrimp your dollars, and you got to be really smart. What's the first move that these people should make? The very first thing they should do is say, I'm imbalanced, I will do this.
Don't put it out all up front.
Anything.
You can't change directions if you spend your entire fertility budget before the crop even goes in the ground. You've got to say, we call it reallocation, relocation, whatever you want to call it, but you can't spend everything up front because you have no way to react. If you got rain, things are looking great, you already spent your bank, you can't help it during the season. So save some back.
All right. Your first recommendation. I want each guy to say the very first thing that you're going to do. Because remember, maybe it's a brand new idea for everybody that's in this room right now. And they say, I'll start by doing what?
Reallocation is what I would do. I feel that I'm raising my crop again as inexpensively as possible. I'm reallocating the nitrogen spend into micronutrients. If I can reach that 95% assimilation level of the nitrogen, the crop is healthy enough. We haven't used fungicide for a couple years. We still put fungicide on a couple fields. Last year there was zero yield gain from the fungicide, but you had the expense of the fungicide, and the corn was 3 points wetter, so then we had to dry that field. And so, again, if I can reach the nitrogen assimilation, with the reallocation of the spend, we're raising the crop less. The crop's reaching its potential. It's healthier, and we're making our potential yield.
Start with what? First thing you say, all right, I've got imbalance. I'm a little overwhelmed. I want to start easy. What do I start the easy?
Well, I mean, number one is you have to know. Like, we got to know what our imbalance is. Where's it at?
Which thing are you deficient
What's
in?
our problem? You know, so, and I would say try to fix one thing at a time. If you try to fix multiple things, you're going to get overwhelmed.
Am I starting by detecting my deficiency with sap, tissue, or soil?
Soil.
So Kevin says all the above. You say soil.
Well, I mean, we're going to start with the soil, and then we're going to see it through the year. And remember, like, we may have to go through this whole season. If you don't know that, you may go through this whole season just learning what you're going to fix next season.
And remember...
Okay, give the microphone. Don't tell me, please.
Remember what tissue is. Tissue is not designed to correct something this year. It's a roadmap for next year. So you when you get into sap, now you can react somewhat to what the plant status is going on right now, but you cannot with tissue. It's for next year.
Okay, so tissue gives you your guidance for next year's correction of imbalance, but soil starts now, and then sap is immediate.
Mr. Tommy, I'm glad you paid attention this morning.
I did.
But yeah, everything they said is 100% right. And another thing earlier Chad talked about was during that season, he's going to be pulling some soil samples. That's something that's really important. You get out later on in the season. I hadn't thought about doing it quite as early as you mentioned, but you get on out there towards reproduction. It's really interesting to see what kind of demand that plant has put in that root zone on that soil that you started with. So you knew what your soil samples were early on. Let's see how it's holding out. How did that fertilizer that you put in that zone change the availability to that plant? And then that also kind of gives you a heads up which direction you need to go with that foliar to address that least limiting factor. Because it's always one thing that's causing the problem, and then it multiplies after that. Now, once you fix that one thing, then you've got something else to figure out what your next problem is.
To talk about nutrient imbalance and what you can be doing on your farm, the big takeaway for me was correct the plant right now, and the soil's a long-term project, and then start easy, which you gave that. Final thought, Kevin. Final thought, how long were you out of balance until you finally made this adjustment, and then how telling was it? How eye-opening was it when you're like, holy crap, I was off?
The majority of my farming career, it seems like.
Still ain't there. I don't think we're still in balance. Like, I don't know if you'll ever be, You just fix, like I said, you fix one thing at a time. I did go out one time and try to fix zinc, and I put it all on in 1 year. So I did do that on the spot.
And it didn't work, right?
No, it worked fine.
Oh, okay, it worked.
It's working good, but still, even with that, like I put on 30 pounds of zinc, which is pretty good money. But we put on 30 pounds of zinc in a field, but we kept it, but we still had to maintain that ratio, right? So it still didn't like fix it like you're forever done. We just got close now to where we can work with it.
Okay, Kelly, final thought on nutrient balance, and then again, the same thing. When did you finally realize and what the aha moment was?
The aha moment came for me last year when we talk about sulfur and things like that. Working with the Neil Kinsey lab, and now we understand some of the metrics. We have a customer, a friend of mine in North Central Iowa, and the Neil Kinsey lab talks about if your base saturation magnesium plus calcium is over 80, you have a problem. Most of my soils do. Well, James's, the sum of the two numbers is 97, and he's in North Central Iowa, so the CECs are, higher number than mine and things like that. And the Kinsey lab came back, and we talk about getting this soil back. 1,000 pounds of sulfur is what it would take to get this soil back to the perfect state. That's an aha moment. Now we're talking about using that. And none of that's fertility, that's soil amendment. And so that's what it takes to move the needle to get into balance. And so the goal, and we're never going to go put 1,000 pounds of sulfur on. That's not what I'm suggesting. But knowing that, having that information is the power. That's what it takes to become in balance. The goal is we want to have an economic return. We might not ever reach balance. And might not ever reach balance, but if we can get closer to that and get an economic return, that's what it's all about. That's what your true goal should be, is getting that economic return. We might not ever get to perfection, and James is an example of that with the challenges in his soil.
Okay, and then I want to go to Tommy to get us a wrap on this. By the way, that thing, 1,000 pounds of sulfur is how far off you were. That means you got a long way to go, but can a little bit change the needle? I mean, 1,000 pounds fixes it, but does 1/10 of that move the needle?
That's why we talk about feeding the plant and stuff. You can imagine how tied up the fertility get in James's soil when it's that far off. And 80 pounds of sulfur every year gives James an economic return. We're never going to be able to afford to put 1,000 pounds on, and I don't think we should try it. But knowing that, that's how far out we are. I mean, it's an amazing number. It blew me away when that came back.
The question we asked was, why is nutrient balance important? We talked about, obviously, it's long-term degradation of your soil. You're losing yield in the meantime, et cetera, et cetera. Tommy, final wrap on this subject. It's your subject. It's a good one. And like you said, and all the three farmers here said, they were all out of whack, and probably most farms are out of whack on nutrient balance.
So I would say don't be afraid to try something different. Kevin, just to show that I was at the session this morning, Matt said, which he'll be on the panel tomorrow, if you're not moving forward, he didn't say it in these terms, but you're going to get run over. So you've got to keep moving forward, changing. Don't be afraid to think outside the box, because a lot of these things that we're talking about, it's not traditional way of thinking. Traditional way of thinking was what Granddaddy did 4 generations ago.
Yeah.
And that's not where we're at today. So keep moving forward. Oh,
Okay,
nope.
Chad.
I mean, the only real reason that's traditional is because that's all they had. So we just lock in on what Papa had, and that's what we can stay with.
Which obviously is a great.
We have more than a hammer.
There's a great answer. There's a great answer right there. Obviously, you're at Commodity Classic for a reason, because we've got better tools than Granddad had, for God's sakes, and you got the wealth of information, which I guess we can leave it right there. The Nature's people are all wearing the same clothing. You can probably notice that. Find them, talk to them about this. That's why we're here. The bar is open until 6 p.m. We will be in this very spot tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. We will be doing it with Matt and with Johnny and Temple. Matt, Johnny, and Temple are our panels from XtremeAg. Tommy's going to be here. I'm going to be here. We want you to be here. Stay here until 6 p.m. Thank you very much for making this a successful session. We hope we gave you valuable information to help you farm better. Till next time.